So
Can
welcome
you,
everyone to the Seal Watch training for 2026 Stewards of the Coast and Redwoods. And we are, it's March 2nd, 2026.
okay, I'll take it away then. I want to first welcome you all because this is a wonderful program. I have participated in it for several decades now, and it's a model for other programs throughout California, including ones at Point Reyes that I've been involved in. So you're part of a legacy of a program to protect seals in the state, actually, as a model. This is the mouth of the Russian River, and what I think is important to note about this picture, first, Jamie Hall, who's probably one of your colleagues there, is the photographer, but it captures the essence of what a seal haul out is. It's a community of animals that collect together. And when you're protecting the seals, you're protecting a community in this area. And the Russian River has been a site for seals, both sea lions and harbor seals, and even a few elephant seals for decades. And so I'm going to talk about the natural history in 30 minutes. So that's a pretty quick run through, but I'll give you some references at the end. And I'll be sharing my slides. So to remind you, pinnipeds give birth on land. That's what distinguishes them from other marine mammals. And they have to have a place on shore to give birth. The amount of time they stay on shore varies between the species, but they all give birth on land. And those places on land where they can do this are limited. So sometimes you'll see multiple species in one place. This happens to be on a Nuevo Island where 4 or 5 different species of pinnipeds occur. There are two different families of pinnipeds in our area of California, the Odoriids, which are the fur seals and the sea lions, and the Phocid seals, which are the harbor seals and the elephant seals. I'm not going to talk about the Odoriids. I'm just going to be talking about harbor seals in this time, but I want you to understand their physiological, not their physiological, but their morphological differences in how they maneuver through the water, as you can see with their body shape, and on land. Elephant seals and harbor seals have to crawl across the land. They can't rotate their pelvis, whereas sea lions and fur seals can crawl up high up on rocks. And so they have different types of habitat that they can actually use on shore. The Faucet seals include elephant seals and harbor seals. And again, as a faucet seal, they have no external ear flap. So like we have an ear flap, they just have an opening in the head where the ear is. They have no articulated hips. They can't rotate their pelvis and walk on all fours. Their front flippers are short, and they swim with their rear flippers in a pelvic oscillation, kind of like a sculling oar in a boat. And the elephant seals are the largest of the pinnipeds in California, whereas the harbor seals are the smallest. Here you can see a head of a harbor seal, and this is where the ear pin is, when it dives, and they can dive fairly deep to about 1,000 feet, that closes. They also have important whiskers that are at the base of each whisker is a bundle of nerves, and they can detect movement in water, which helps them to track prey. And they feed in waters which often are not clear. So tracking by not, they don't have biosonar uh, like other cetaceans do, but they can track their prey from the vibrations through the water with their whiskers. One thing that's very distinguishing about harbor seals is there is little sexual dimorphism. With both the otariids and elephant seals, there's extreme sexual dimorphism between the males and the females, but both are about 4 to 5 feet. They're sexually mature at about 3 to 5 years, and they live about 20 years. So here's a male genital orifice. That's really about the only way you can tell it's a male, and here The female has nipples that are standing out because it's a nursing female. As a friend of mine used to say, the only way you can tell the difference is if they drop their jeans. Okay. Another distinguishing feature about harbor seals is their teeth are kind of scalloped, and this helps them to seize prey. You don't see this with either the fur seals or the elephant seals, which tend to have just straight teeth, conical teeth, not these scalloping shapes like this. They also come in many color phases. There's seals that are very dark, or ones that are very light with dark spots. These are called the common coloration, and this is a dark phase coloration. And then you'll see when before they're molting, they come in very diverse color shades because their fur is very worn out. When they uh, when they molt their fur, it's usually shed like a dog, and they don't molt in big sheaths like elephant seals. They also, you can find some red seals. And these red seals we studied them in San Francisco Bay and found that it's iron oxide that's attached to the fur. And the amount of red varies amongst individuals, but you can also see some of them they have brittle whiskers. This iron oxide attached to the uh, the whiskers makes them brittle, and that's a factor of iron oxide on fur. It also causes wear spots on the body. They also have algae that grows on the fur on some of the seals. In San Francisco Bay, something like 40% of the seals are red, but generally along the coast, you'll see maybe 2 to 5%. And I think there are probably some at the mouth of the Russian River, maybe a couple red ones I see there on occasion. But in San Francisco Bay, it's very distinct to see many red seals, and we haven't figured out the mystery of why that is so, but you can see here 3 together in this haul out. So that's almost half of that little haul out right there. The algae that grows on the fur of the seals is usually um, ulva. There are about 4 different species, but it's usually an ulva type dominant species, and it occurs mostly on seals in estuaries and mostly females. And you'll see that pregnant females floating in the water because they're pregnant. And this is one of the reasons why it's probably a good substrate for the algae to grow on. Harbor seals are found throughout the northern latitudes of the world, and our subspecies is here in the eastern Pacific called Phoca vitulina ricardsi. All of them are similar in size, but there are variations in coloration. There are red seals even seen in Japan, but a very small percentage, just as an example. They use diverse habitats, and that's one of the reasons why you do find them throughout the northern latitudes of the world. They use tidal mudflats, rocky tidal areas that are exposed at low tides, river mouths such as the Russian River, and tidal sandbars and pocket beaches. This is an example of an estuary, it's Drake's Estero, and you can see all of the different sandbars that are exposed at low tide, and that provides really high quality habitat for the harbor seals. And it's indeed one of the largest colonies in the state of California. And so those sandbars are exposed at low tide, and then the seals can haul out there without being disturbed by people or predators. This is another example of a very large haul out site. This is called Double Point at Point Reyes, and I've counted almost 900 animals on this beach. It's a pocket beach, so it's pretty inaccessible in a wilderness area at Point Reyes. But here's an example of how packed that is when it's filled up during the molt season. That's when we have our highest count there. But they also use human structures, abandoned floats, fishing docks, and this lower float here was specifically designed for harbor seals in Alameda in San Francisco Bay because the existing haul-out site that they were going to use was going to be dismantled, and some people stepped up and created this concrete floating dock, which is perfect for them. This map represents all of the different large haul-out sites where harbor seals occur within central and northern California, both in San Francisco Bay and along the coast. And you can see that along the Sonoma coast, there are actually probably several smaller haul-out sites, but these are the ones where at least 100 animals or more occur. The top graph shows the number of harbor seals counted in the last time in California by the Department of Fish and Game in 2011. They have done a more recent count, but the data aren't out yet. But you can see that the population increased over from the 80s to the 90s, peaked in 2004, and then has been declining since. And the mainland California is represented by Point Reyes. 20% of the state of harbor seals is been counted at Point Reyes, so it's considered a hot spot. That doesn't include the Channel Islands, which also is another about 20% of the state. And at the lower graph is the numbers of harbor seals at Point Reyes, and the graph shows from 2000 because we're using the same protocol, but you can see that the numbers have been fairly stable and only dropping off a little in the past couple of years. The top graph is of the adults and the lower one is of pups. So it's been fairly stable for the past 20 years at Point Reyes, and that's also the same at in Sonoma. Seals are present at these haul-out sites year-round. You're going to be doing your work during their pupping season when they're the most vulnerable, but they're there any day of the year. Even during stormy days, you might find them. But that daily cycle is affected by the time of day and also by the tidal cycle. So during the midday, when the sun is at its peak, you're going to get the highest number hauled out. And depending on the tide level at a particular haul-out site, you're going to get more hauled out during low tide at in the middle of the day. So the top graph shows time of day, and the bottom one is tide with time of day. And one of the things I wanted to emphasize in these two is that they should say tide. Sorry about that. Is that the Russian River is available to the seals 24 hours a day. The tidal cycle does affect the size of the haul out, but the seals can haul out any time of day at that site. And that makes it unusually important, particularly for females with very small pups. The seals layered on top of this daily cycle has a seasonal cycle, both a breeding season, the molt, and the non-breeding season. And I'll go through each of these. The pupping season is just about to begin in March, and it extends through into May. And we get the peak count of pups at about the middle of May, but there's a pupping climb, so the peak at Point Reyes is probably about 5 days earlier than the peak in Sonoma and Mendocino County, for example. And the peak in San Francisco Bay is a week earlier than Point Reyes. So there's a climb up and down the state where they're born earlier as you go south and later as you go north. So time of day has an effect on that, time of daylight day. The seals mate in the end of May into June, and then they have what's called delayed implantation, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But after that, they go through a molt period, and then here's the implantation is after a couple months after the mating season. So I'll again talk about each of these. First, of the pupping season, the female gives birth to one pup per year. As I said earlier, they're sexually mature at 3 to 5. Gestation is about 9 months, but they pup about the same time every year, an individual seal, because they have this delayed implantation, which lasts about 2 months. So the egg is fertilized, but it doesn't implant in the uterine wall for about 2 months. What is unique about harbor seals is the pups can swim at birth. And here is an example of a pup riding on the back of a female. And no, none of the other pinnipeds in California can do that. And this allows the seals to use types of habitat that other pinnipeds can't, that might be awash during the middle of the day. The females come into estrus 30 days after they give birth, and then at that point they mate, and then they wean the pup at 30 days. So that's the relationship. 30 days, the pup is with the female, and then they separate after that. The female usually departs. This is a series of photos caught by Jamie Hall of a birth at, I don't think it was at Jenner. I think that it was at Sea Ranch. But you can see most often the head comes out first. And again, the pups can swim within minutes. Here, this shows the amniotic sac still clinging to the pup after birth. And pups, some very small pups are born with what's called lanugo. This is a very fine fur that insulates pups. It's usually shed in the uterus of harbor seals in Washington, Oregon, and California, but in Alaska, it's retained. So it has to do with keeping the pup warm when it's very young. Sometimes when pups are born down here and they still have the lanugo, they're actually premature, but that isn't always the case. Sometimes the lanugo is just not shed in the uterus. But you can see it's usually a uniform color like this instead of a pup without lanugo, and it shows their spot pattern, and that spot pattern is like a thumbprint for each individual seal. Pups weigh about 24 pounds when they're born, and you can see here's the umbilical cord still attached. It's usually dropped about 3 days after birth. When they're weaned, they weigh about 50 pounds, and frankly, when a year later, they're still about 50 pounds. They don't gain a lot of weight in that first year. And again, they're weaned at 30 days. So here is a weaned pup, and you can see the size and the coloration. It's got its spot pattern is actually it's a yearling, so its spot pattern is kind of buffed out because its fur is old. Now I want to show you this just to see all the different sizes of pups based on their ages up to that 30 days. And I'll let you think for yourself, count how many do you think are in this image. I'll give you a second to do that, and then I'll actually show you how many pups there are. And this is what I consider a nursery, which is there are a lot of females in this little protected area. So think about how many might be here. There are 10. So the one obscure, here's one obscure one here, but here's one nursing while it's in the water. Here's a very small pup here, but this one looks like a weaned pup. It's so large. But if you look at it, it still has that silver hair from its newborn. And this is another weaned pup, very, very large. And the female loses a large amount of mass to this pup at that 30 days. So the females come into estrus at about 30 days, and that's when they engage in mating. And it's aquatic mating, so it happens in the water. And there have been researchers who've identified that males have what are called meritories. Instead of territories on land, they have territories in the water around where the females are. And they can aggressively defend their place next to females. But they're also described as having what's called a lek, and that's seen a lot in ungulates like deer or elk, where the males gather together and demonstrate. In the case of harbor seals, the males will gather underwater and are making vocalizations, but It's not well studied because you can't study animals in the water very easily. And if you were trying to be there watching it, then you would become the object of interest rather than them looking at each other. This series of photos is precopulatory play, which you see with harbor seals a lot in the water, where they're nosing each other, a lot of nosing and nuzzling, and here the male sniffing the female to see if she's ready, and then biting around the neck and rolling in the water. So you see a lot of this precopulatory play. You don't see mating very often. It's pretty rare. I've seen it a few times, but usually it's in not clear water deep. Um, After the females mate and they'll leave an area for a while and they'll come back and be molting. So they molt in June to August. And here you see a mix of some that are molted, like this very bright, shiny one here. Some that are in between molting and some that have not molted yet. And it takes about 3 weeks for the seals to molt, and it's like shedding fur. Here you see this one, it's got a scar or something there, and so that's an area that's molting faster. Their belly molts faster, their flippers molt faster, where any place where it's rubbing against the rocks. And you can see that the red seals molt that red fur, but when I've tracked individual seals, that you'll see that red fur come back. So there's something that is different about these red seals, either physiologically or behaviorally, that enables them to have this red fur. And what they're feeding on when they're not after the molt, the one thing I emphasize, seals never stop feeding, but it's reduced during the breeding season in the molt because they're resting. They have to rest more on shore when they're molting because daylight accelerates the molt process. So they never stop eating, but this is the array of food that they'll eat. And after they molt, then they're spending more time in the water. So they're spending an average of about 7 hours on shore and the rest of the time foraging. And this is the kind of range of food. They feed whatever is locally abundant, including from rockfish or sand dabs and eel, even hake and squid and halibut. I saw one eating a halibut and it was rotating it in its mouth like it was chewing on a chocolate chip cookie. They also like salmon when salmon's present. So this is a picture taken in Tomales Bay of a harbor seal that's chewing on salmon. There's no other fish with flesh like that. There was a study done, and I forget the name of the researcher in the Russian River. She did her master's thesis, and she found that the harbor seals were mostly eating lamprey and not salmon. So there's an example of one swallowing down a lamprey, which probably breed up in the Russian River. And this one's eating a flounder, which is kind of like a halibut. And they in turn are fed upon. So the major predators of pinnipeds generally are polar bears up in the Arctic, and then orcas. This is from the San Juan Islands, and an orca is swimming by a group of harbor seals hauled out. So they're safe hauled out there. But when they're in the water, then white sharks are the primary predator. And then more recently here, are coyotes, though coyotes were identified in the state of Washington many years ago. One thing that they would have been preyed on quite a bit would have been grizzly bears, but they're gone now. I want to emphasize again that this is a new predator for Point Reyes, and I think probably a bit for Sonoma County too. And this picture was taken in Bolinas Lagoon, where a coyote is sneaking up on a female with her nursing pup, and she noticed it and got away right away. But not so much more recently. They have been preying quite a bit on harbor seal pups. Once seals are not at the breeding site, some of them will disperse. We found that about 50% disperse both north and south of the place where we tagged them here at Drake's Estero. but some just stayed year round around in Drake's Estero. They would leave and feed outside of Drake's Estero and then come back and haul out. But the range is much greater than we had ever expected. So seals come back to Point Reyes to breed, but then they disperse north, particularly in Marin and Sonoma and Mendocino County, often at river mouths. And this was another study where they were tagged at the yellow sites, these yellow dots, and then they dispersed to other haul out sites. So these at Drake's Estero went down to Pacifica, and these at Point Reyes, these ones in San Francisco Bay went out to Point Reyes Headlands. So quite a bit of movement from various sites around regionally. So think of it as they're going from city to seal city, um, and most of these sites can be pretty close. One of the things we're spending a lot of time looking at is health, because over the years we've had some major die-offs, both in '97 where we had over 100 animals that died. We don't know what killed them in '97, but we identified a coronavirus like COVID in 2000, and then there was a small die-off in 2009. Right now, we're looking to see if there is H5N1, which has been an issue detected in the Pacific, the northeastern Pacific, but not here in California yet. As you probably read recently about elephant seals in Ana Nuevo having been detected with avian influenza, but we have not detected it in elephant seals at Point Reyes. And then finally, I wanted to talk about disturbance and how that affects these haul-out behaviors of harbor seals. And the disturbance of resting seals, it causes first they react by alerting, then they flush into the water if they detect a potential threat, and then they'll be in the water. They'll disperse from a haul-out site if they're disturbed from their resting period. And the short-term effects are you disturb that resting period, and you cause pup separation. For the long term, this could, if you're disturbed every night for a week, you might just stop using a site, or they might change their behavior and only haul out at night. And then, of course, there could be reduced pup production. Females might say, this isn't a good place to raise a pup. I think I'll go someplace else. So here's the seals, and here's a boat going by. Seals, surprisingly, habituate to some extent. This is Tomales Bay. So these seals have habituated to boats that go by and they know they're not going to disturb them. But if they land here, like these boats landed there, so they flush the seals there. But they can adapt to boats going by so long as they know it's not a permanent threat. And the sources of disturbance range, as you would expect from people just hiking down the beach. Here's a group of birds, and there could have been seals in this picture too, where people are hiking down the beach and could flush seals. Ultralights have been a problem, but not common because it's pretty windy along our coast. Clam digging is an issue because that's where seals haul out on those sandbars, people walking their dogs, and then kayaks have been an issue at some of the sites. But more recently, disturbance by wildlife we've been focusing on coyotes because they've had a large impact on seals at Point Reyes over the past few years. And I've heard in McCarricker Beach and some others, there's some written articles about this too. But also river otters have disturbed harbor seals at haul out sites, and gulls and eagles. The Marine Mammal Protection Act was set up to protect all marine mammals, not just the endangered ones, but even the lowly harbor seal. And I just want to emphasize this is one of the important legislation acts that helped get harbor seals to a state where they've recovered, because before this act, they were hunted. There was a bounty on harbor seals in California. And by one, protecting them with the law, and two, protecting where they haul out and have their pups, that has enabled the numbers to recover. This is an example of Hog Island, Tomales Bay, and it's part of the Point Reyes National Seashore. And the seals abandoned the site in around the early 90s because kayaks would go to the island and they would flush the seals. People would camp on the island. So the park restricted access in the 90s. And it took until 2006 for the seals to start using the site again and start having pups. But this last couple of years, there've been 50 pups. It's a safe haven. People were respectful of the seals there. And just like you're seeing at Jenner, people are respectful of a distance and the animals will habituate and tolerate it. And I want to emphasize again the importance of protected areas. And this is the mouth of the Russian River is a part of the network of marine protected areas in the state of California because of its exceptional resources, including the seals, but also because of the salmon that come up that river. So this network, this layers of protection are important because it not just protecting the seals, it's protecting the birds that roost there and the salmon. So I want to really emphasize how important this layering of protection is in our state. And finally, here are sources of information that you can use. And it doesn't show up very well in blue, but you'll get this site and you'll be able to link in. It's Marine Mammal Science, and the National Park Service has a website. But most of all, I want to thank the volunteers, which are the backbone of all programs. And you are the volunteers. You're the eyes and ears of what's happening out on the site. And I also want to thank especially the photographers who shared their pictures with me. So thank you, and I can answer any questions now.
If you want to if you have a question and you want to unmute, go ahead.
I was just curious if we know what causes the iron oxide or where it comes from. Is it just from the ocean water?
No, it's actually probably from the river water, but it's an area to be studied. When I looked at it, the geochemists that were talking to me said that in fresh water, iron is in solution. And when it hits salt water, it flocculates. That means it comes out of solution and it attaches to things. And so that could be one way that it's attaching to the hair of the seal because they'd be feeding in that wedge, that salt wedge in San Francisco Bay. So that could be one source. Another is they could be exposed to it in the mud. And there was a study done in Humboldt also looking at their limited number of red seals there, but they noticed that the soil, they thought that the soil might be the source of the red and the dye, that it dyed the hair where they hauled out. And that could also be a source. When they expose their body, they're in water, they expose their body to air, they rust. They're rusty seals.
So
There could be,
is there any negative impact to them that you
yeah,
think?
the whiskers are brittle and whiskers are important for helping to locate prey.
Right.
There was one study that showed a correlation, not causation, but a correlation between higher levels of pollutants with red seals in San Francisco Bay, but correlation is not causation. It could be where they're feeding, they're more exposed. So maybe at an outfall, but we couldn't find that correlation. We tracked animals that had satellite tags where they were foraging. We couldn't find a correlation to location within San Francisco Bay to explain it. But if you ever go to the South Bay, there's one place called Maury Slough, and the seals haul out there and they are really muddy. And it's very possible that that's why they're getting so red. But again, they're rusty seals, punky, rusty seals. It could be genetics also.
Carolyn, go ahead, and then Mike.
I mean, maybe you said this, but obviously the pups are smaller than the adults. But how else can you tell by looking at a whole bunch of seals which ones are the pups. Like I did not see 10 in that picture.
Oh, well, the pups are, when they're born, they're about 2.5 feet long, so they're very small. If I didn't say that, I apologize. And as they get older, they're gonna they gain about 25, they weigh 25 pounds when they're born. When they're weaned, they're 25 pounds. So they're doubling their weight in that time period. The females are losing a lot of weight because they're nursing. They're still feeding, but not very much. But they're about half the length of
Okay,
a female. Yeah.
thank you.
Yes. Another way you can tell the difference is their fur is very bright and shiny because they're newborn, and the adults have very dull fur and they're going to molt. And people mix up yearlings with weaned pups, but as soon as you see that bright shiny fur, you know it's a weaned pup.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
My question for you is, you had mentioned that harbor seals can use more habitat because the pups are great swimmers, and that you sometimes see the odd elephant seal or sea lion at mouth of the Russian River, but it mostly seems to be a harbor seal. So why is it that it's
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you, Mike.
sorry? Is this any better?
No, I can hear you a little better now. Yes.
All right. Why is it that the mouth of the Russian River is mostly harbor seal?
One, because they're very adaptive to being in that transition zone of the river rising, and it can rise a lot, but also because they're a little more tolerant of people. There used to be California sea lions at the mouth of the Russian River, and I haven't seen evidence of them there in a long time, and that could be related to the loss of the reduction in salmon, because salmon are a big part of their prey base. They do occur north of the Russian River and they haul out on rocks there. But I've never heard, they abandoned the site in the 70s before I started studying the harbor seals there. So I don't know why they abandoned it. It could be that they were heavily disturbed by people, but I don't know. Elephant seals on occasion show up there, but they haven't established a colony there, and probably there's just too many people on the beach for a colony to get established. They're pretty reactive to people, but once a colony is established, they're not so reactive to people.
Marzia, go ahead.
Yeah, so I also just read about that avian influenza that affected the elephant seals in Año Nuevo, and I was curious to know if it obviously it could spread to harbor seals and other pinnipeds, right? Because it's just spread through usually like the feces of the birds or just the environment that they're in. Do you know if the harbor seals are currently being tested too for to see if they caught the influenza? Do you know?
That's a great question. They're not being tested here because it's very difficult to capture harbor seals. Elephant seals are easier to sample because they're sound asleep and you walk up to them and you get a swab from their nose or their anus. With
Makes
harbor
sense.
seals, you can't
Yeah,
do that.
they get spooked so easily. That's
But
why.
their harbor seals have been affected in the Atlantic, and I believe there was some evidence of it showing up in harbor seals in the North Pacific, but it hasn't been detected here. And there's been no evidence last year of mortality related to it. The birds are being tested on the Farallones, and there's avian influenza on the Farallones. Harbor seals do co-occur on haul-out sites with birds, but not so much right now in the areas where they might be exposed.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking that.
Harriet, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I get a lot of questions, especially from kids, but also adults. Like, why do they leave? Why do they leave, Jenner? And where do they go? So I understand from you that they they have a range of 500 miles.
Kilometers, yeah.
But why would they leave is what they ask.
Well, they're going to places where they know they can consistently get food. So some don't leave. Some hang around at around because you're seeing animals year round at the Russian River. So there's a group of resident animals, and then there's a group of animals that disperse, but they don't disperse in the same direction like California sea lions do. They tend to migrate north from their breeding grounds up to British Columbia because they have a, a food source that is dependable up there. So as a young seal, they probably individually learned that the mouth of the Russian River, they can always find food, so they might go up there. Some of the animals that I tagged went all the way up to the Smith River. Most of the ones that I tagged early on went to river mouths. Some went into San Francisco Bay. Several went into Tamales Bay because that's where the herring spawn in the winter months. So that's a reliable food source in the winter for them to go and feed.
Mhm.
So that's why they leave the area. Otherwise, they'd be there year round.
And would the mothers go with like the half yearling or the yearling? Would they go to?
They wean them at 30 days and that's it.
That's
Now
it.
they might interact because they're part of this colony site, but they don't pair up anymore. One thing I didn't have time to say is they feed cooperatively. So the female may be teaching the pup how to feed in that 30 days because the pup is accompanying her in the water while she's feeding. She doesn't stop feeding like elephant seals do because elephant seals don't go in the water for 30 days, whereas harbor seals are swimming within an hour. Pups are swimming with their mom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll do a couple more questions. Go ahead, Teresa. And then there's a question about do stellar sea lions occur on the coast here?
So you want me to answer that question first? The stellars?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, the stellars do occur north. Cape May Rocks, I think that is near it's near Fort Ross. There's a colony of stellar sea lions there with pups that are born. But I don't believe that the stellars were at the Russian River. I know California sea lions were, but I don't know that stellars were. The stellar populations declined in California because of multiple reasons, but one is that salmon populations have declined and that's their primary food. And what was the question?
I was just wondering, like when they leave, like when they go like to the San Francisco Bay or within that 500-mile range, do they like usually go by themselves or do they team up? Because I would assume they're kind of social.
They're very social, and I would expect that they probably go in groups. And if you're sitting at Jenner, you might see some arrive together in groups. So they're probably fishing partners. They're hunting together, hunting partners. Though males might be more independent in where they're moving and feeding because they feed on schooling fish where they would need to be cooperatively feeding, like on herring. They actually kind of push the fish together into balls so they can more easily prey on them. But if they're feeding on benthic prey, such as halibut, then they might be feeding alone because it's a single prey item. So they may not be fishing with some other seal, but they might be traveling together. And you'll see, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. How far like up the river might they go?
I don't know up the Russian River, but in Sacramento, they went all the way up to Sacramento, the city.
Oh, wow.
So they can go pretty far upriver. So can California sea lions. I've seen them pass the Carquinez Bridge in San Francisco Bay. They have a haul out up there. They're following the fish. The salmon are going upstream. They're following them upstream. Yeah. And yeah. Yeah. Bill, did you have a question? You're
Bill,
muted.
you can unmute, Bill.
There we go. How's that?
Nice to see you, Bill.
Okay. Um, just a comment and a suggestion um, that one of the reasons I always come to these trainings is because of Sarah Allen is always so good.
Oh, you're so sweet.
And in earlier years, she spent a lot of time also describing the other pinnipeds, and I think it probably confused. They just got too much information. But one of the things that visitors ask, they almost always ask the difference between the different seals. So it's good for us to be fully knowledgeable, and you did present some of the differences. And I just suggest that to make sure any new Seal Watch volunteers have some good material that they can look at and to be informed, because the difference between the ones that are most common here, that is the harbor seal and the California sea lions particularly, I think are important, and people find that interesting. So I just suggest that the new people get some literature on that, on all of them.
Well, thank you, Bill. I can include some slides on the other species, which I've given in previous presentations, so that you can have that as a reference when I send this
Okay, good.
to Lisa. Yeah, and she can
Yeah.
share that.
And this is Lisa Billadu, the other Lisa. Got to be careful. Lisa B. Bill and the rest of the attendees, I just put a link in the chat, which takes you to the Stewards website. And it's the 21 presentation that Dr. Allen did that covers all the marine mammals in our area and goes through everyone. So it's an excellent resource, just like Bill was asking for. So it's a wonderful presentation. So the link is in your chat, and take time to look at it if you can. I've watched it a couple of times.
And thank you, Lisa, for taking over the role.
Yes. One thing I'll add for your edification, which is interesting, is the northern fur seal population on the Farallones has really gotten high. I think it's over 1,000 pups. So you're going to start seeing more northern fur seals on the rocks, probably in the area, maybe young ones coming in. And I think it's kind of fun to see so many species recovering in Central California. The harbor seals are recovering, the California sea lions, the northern fur seals, and the elephant seals. There are 4 species, and the Guadalupe fur seals are showing up a little more. It's very exciting, and it's all because of protections and actions like this organization is so important to help that process. So I applaud you all for participating in this program.
Good.
Thank you so much. That was just incredibly, that was just like an incredible wealth of knowledge. And I'm so glad we have it recorded.
Thank you for inviting me, and you have a good evening.
Thank you very much for helping to enlighten us.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We will send a follow-up email after this, and that will include a link to that presentation that Lisa put in there.
Good.
All right. We're going to just go through a little bit more about the Seal Watch program in particular. Lisa and I will go over that. And if David Berman comes back on, he'll talk a little bit about the history of the program. There are volunteers here, as you know, that have been with this program for many years. Right now, I'm just going to do a very quick overview. And let me just share my screen. Can you all see that big seal there?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Excellent. Okay. So Seal Watch has been around for a long time. It was the first program of Stewards, and I'm not going to try and explain the whole history of it. There's a whole story of it that I'm hoping that one of you can tell at some point that we can send a link to on our website. But I am going to show you what the mission of it is. And it really is about sharing an interpretation. It's really about sharing knowledge, letting people observe the seals safely. So using storytelling, using visuals, Lisa will speak more to that as we go through. Here's a really great overview of the Russian River mouth, the estuary there. Goat Rock Beach is the parking area, and then this spit here on the south part of the Russian River is where the Seal Watch volunteers and the program is based. And then you can see the big arrow. The Jenner boat launch is over by the town of Jenner. And here's another view of the haul out, the big star, where the jetty is and where the volunteers usually spend their time on shift. These are a couple of the signs on the way out to Goat Rock Beach, out where the haul out is. It is a no dogs beach. And we just like this photo a lot about not getting too close. And here, Sarah Allen talked to this a little bit, but this is a really good visual. This is telling you a lot about what's happening, how the effect of all kinds of different things on seals, all kinds of different activities. One of the ways that we help provide a guideline for visitors for safe viewings by putting out ropes. A group of us went out yesterday out to the beach and put up ropes for the season. And that just is a guideline to people to remind them to stay back from the harbor seals. Sometimes people are going to walk along the beach and they won't even know that they're coming upon a harbor seal nursery. So these are what are meant to alert them. In 2025, there were over 1,000 people that were interacted with by Seal Watch volunteers out at Goat Rock. People observed 10 dogs out on the beach and 15 flushes from all kinds of different reasons. And I don't remember if Sarah mentioned this, but one of the things that can flush them is birds. Here's a view of, there's a bald eagle that often likes to spend time out on the beach. And the pelicans can, and the other birds can startle the seals just as much as people. Have you seen that, Bill? Have you seen the birds flush them? Yeah. The Jenner boat ramp, and there's a picture of Erica there, is really for interpretation and also as the boaters are about to get out into the water and go boating to let them know that there's a harbor seal colony and to keep their distance. And there's some interpretive materials like skulls and things like that there to help educate the visitors. And this takes place right in front of the Jenner Visitor Center. And there are visitors. There could be otter, there could be sea lions, harbor seals. And then this is just an overview of what we provide, what you provide. We'll talk more about this. And then an important resource to know about is the Marine Mammal Center for injured animals. And there are local people who go out and help respond if an animal is injured or if there's a question if a pup is abandoned. So this is a really great number to have, and we'll make sure that it's available for everyone. All right. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to let the other Lisa B. You can refer to me as Lisa S. for Stewards. The other Lisa B. is going to talk a little bit more. Did you want me to add anything in there, Lisa?
No, you did great. And I'm sure we'll chime on each other if we see something that we need to talk about. And I realize we don't have a whole bunch of time left, so I'm going to go as quickly as I can. And I'm not really great at sharing the screen sometimes, so let's see what we can do here. Okay, so I'll get this one going. I think I might actually get it done right this time. Okay, there we go. Okay, so you guys can see the shift reports. Can you see
Yeah.
that, Lisa? Bill?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
it looks
Okay,
good.
so I'm going to go over some logistical things, and I just want to let people know who are joining us today. There are so many of you who have I've never met before, and I'm really excited that you're considering joining us. I hope you do, because it's really a thrill to be able to introduce the public to these beautiful, beautiful animals. But we also have some paperwork things that we have to do. So we kind of revised the shift report a little bit. And so I'm just going to go through some of the basic things on it. And of course, now my cat has decided this is the perfect time to join you. And here we go. So the first thing is the shift reports will be in a binder, and we're going to go through all these props on the 15th when we're out at the beach. So we'll do one shift report per shift, and there's a morning shift and there's an afternoon shift. And you'll list your names and some basic things like a date, whether it's the morning shift or the afternoon shift, the time in, the time out. We are going to be using a device. Some people call it a kestrel, and we'll use it to measure the wind direction, the wind speed, and the temperature. And one thing I really encourage you to do is before you go out for a shift is go to one of the resources, and once again, you'll get a copy of this, to determine if the weather is going to allow, if you're going to be comfortable out there. And your safety is first and foremost. So if you get out there and you feel like you're being sandblasted, please don't stay. If it's so cold and you didn't bring enough layers, please don't stay. Just take care of yourself. But I know in my first shift last season, I showed up at the overlook to see where all the seals were, and the gate to Goat Rock was closed, and state parks had closed it. So we'll get you that information as well. So, but check on the weather before you go out. And if you can't go out for some reason, we do have a way to communicate with each other in a Google Doc kind of format, not a doc, but a Google Drive kind of thing, where you can send an email saying, please don't come out. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. We're going to do a radio check-in, hopefully, and we'll go over once again the logistics. We do have a radio out at the beach with us, and then if someone's at the boat launch, they will have one as well. And we just check in. It has come in. It is really a valuable tool. Last year I saw a kayaker, and I know I'm not out there to protect the kayakers, I'm there to take care of the seals, but I saw them go through the mouth of the river and then overturn. So I'm like, yeah, it's probably a good thing to call in and let them know that they may be getting a 911 call. We note whether the river mouth is opened or closed, and then we tally the number of visitors that we engage with, and we have a little counter, a little clicker thing that you can use that's in the backpack that goes out with you. We do take account of the different pinnipeds that we see out there and other marine mammals. So we try to identify the adults from the harbor seal pups. Sometimes it's not so easy. And as you saw from that picture of that Dr. Allen put up there, I'm so glad she put it up there, because it's like, I came up with 8, and I've seen that slide multiple times. I don't know how she came up with 10, but we do want to make sure that we indicate to the best of our ability how many adults, how many pups. It gets to be a time where you really can't tell the adults from the pups looking at the shift reports from the last 2 years. If it's too difficult, you could just put the combination. If you see any sea lions, elephant seals, whales, things of that nature, you can put them in there. And also with the harbor seals, indicate, well, if it's on the north side of the river mouth or the south side. That'll give us an idea of where they're spending their time. And here's a great picture of last year's Seal Watch. We had a lovely gray whale who just decided to come right on through. It was a perfect day, very exciting. Okay, if you see an injured or ill marine mammal, go ahead and say yes. If you don't, say no, and then put your observations down. And On the shift report now are the 2 phone numbers that you would use to contact different agencies. So if it's abandoned or injured, you contact the Marine Mammal Center. And if it's deceased, you contact Cal Academy of Science and their phone number. If Cal Academy has already been out there and they're doing a necropsy, what they will typically do is remove the head, and then they will spray paint a mark on the body. So you will already know that they've been contacted. And my suggestion is if any of these happen, that you notify through our communication document that we, Lisa, what do we call that document that you were, our email communication, just for Seal Watch people, that it's been reported, so that the next shift person or someone next week knows it's already been taken care of, because the remains can stay out on the beach for quite some time. Any dogs on the beach, indicate the total number of incidents. And it's easy to use tally marks, but if you put, this is when I was doing the stats for the shift reports, I was like, was that 11 on Goat Rock or was it 2? So it'd be better, you can do the tallies, but then just put the numerical number next to it, if you wouldn't mind. Once again, with the flushings, were the dogs on Goat Rock side, the north side, or someplace else? Beach visitors, kayakers, boaters, paddleboarders, and any other kind of disturbances would be listed there. Now, this little guy, yes, last year I was out there and some people who met me out of the jetty came running back to me and they said, there's a pup trying to get into the parking lot over at Blind Beach. Well, I was just getting ready to leave anyway, so I have Verizon, and we'll show you when we go out to the beach. There are a couple of places where you can get a hold of cell phone reception, and I was able to call the Marine Mammal Center, and I drove my car over there. I thought putting those cones down would stop this little pup from going into the parking lot. No, it just climbed right over them. And the Marine Mammal Center had someone there in 10 minutes. And he did an assessment. You could see the mom out in the water, keeping an eye on things. And he's a trained professional, the marine mammal person. And he said it was about 3 weeks old. He had a full belly. So he hadn't been abandoned, at least not at that point. Hopefully, mom came back and pup were reunited. I call him Trouble. And he was just so cute because the guy seemed to think this was a repeat offender. So we don't do Blind Beach, but in this case, we were there and we helped this little guy. So that's that. And then one other new thing for us. Let me go ahead and get out of here. And there it is. Okay. Okay. Now go back to this one. Got it. I'm getting better at this. Okay. Can you guys see a sign-up sheet there? I can see it. Okay. So we're doing a different sign-up process this year. The team up was a little challenging, so we're working with something different. And this is what we use for quite a few of the other programs. And it's a Google Doc that will be sent to you once you're fully onboarded and you've done all the paperwork and requirements that are required by state parks and then stewards in order for you to be able to go out and do a shift. So I'll just kind of quickly go through the columns and tell you what you would put in here, and I'll show you how to do it. So like the first date that we have available is Saturday, March 21st. And if I'm signing up for they're all 3-hour shifts at Goat Rock from 11 to 2, I would put my name in there. And then if I'm willing to mentor someone, I would put yes there. Okay, and then you can have a place here for notes as well. We typically we would like to have 2 people as leads out there per shift, but that rarely happens. But with all you new faces, I'm confident we're going to get more people out there together. Also, there's a column for someone who would like to shadow. And Lisa, when you get to your, maybe you can chime in now. You said the people who shadowed don't have to be volunteers or something like that.
I'm working on getting clarification from
Okay.
state parks right now if someone can just shadow a shift before they're a volunteer.
Perfect. Okay. And the reason why this document, one of the reasons this document is so important is because this is the way that state parks will cover you under workers' comp. And so you have to do this in advance. You can't do it retroactive. Okay. So if for some reason you go, oops, I made another commitment, I can't do that, you can just go in here and you can remove your information. Simple as a click of the mouse, delete. Okay. Don't change anyone else's information. It's just really a tabbing through from field to field. Down at the bottom, you will see that we have a place for contact information. This is optional. So if you don't want the world having, well, just the Seal Watch people who are approved to have all your information, don't put it in here. But it is really key to communicating. And so I just put in a fictitious phone number here because obviously I don't want people calling everyone who watches this video to be calling me. So you can put that information in there as well. You can also put it in an email just saying, I typically say I'm heading out at, I'm going to go to the overlook at 9:45, be down on the beach around 10. If you're going to join me, because maybe someone signs up on my drive out there, just stop by the shed and get a vest and join me. So then we've got our rope checks. So if you are going to be doing rope checks or putting them up, and you need to sign up in advance as well for liability's sake. So I know that we've had volunteers who live close by who go out there pretty frequently, but we do ask that you sign up in advance so everyone knows you're out there. And we already have some volunteers who are going to sign up for every Friday, for the season. So they'll be already on here. Also, there'll be the Goat Rock, the afternoon shift, which starts at 2:00 and goes until 5 p.m. My request is if you're doing the afternoon shift at 2:00, please be out at the jetty at the ropes area at 2:00, because sometimes the person whose shift's ending at 2 needs to leave promptly at 2, and they have all the gear, and you might miss each other on the beach if you pass each other. The boat launch shifts are going to run from 10:00 to 1:00. And when we do our follow-up, we'll check in with you and see if you're interested in the beach or the boat launch. Some people are okay with both. And Alyssa, our program assistant, she is going to be sending out periodic updates to all the people in the Seal Watch group, just letting them know what shifts are available and asking you if you can step up and take on a shift or two. The volunteer position does require one shift per month, and I've already gone in. I do it in advance. I put in all my shifts for the whole season. That way I can work I work my life around Seal Watch when Seal Watch comes in. So I'm already on there through May right now because I'm coordinating with another program at Stewards. And then I'll get June, July, August in there pretty soon. I did also include in here Memorial Day because a lot of people take the day off to come out to the beach. So that's the one Monday that will be on there. So I'm going to stop sharing, and if anyone has any questions about that, please let me know because Lisa's got some more things to go through with you. Yes, Bill.
With respect to having phone service out there, I just don't have phone service.
Right.
So, I don't know. That's if other people are able to make a phone call from there, then good. I don't know what service they have.
I have Verizon, and there are a couple places where you definitely can get reception, but that's one reason the radio is really important. And so if we have a boat launch person, they'll be trained on how to use the radio along with us when we go out to the beach, so we can communicate back and forth. Okay. Carolyn? Oh, sorry, Bill. Are you done?
Well, I don't know whether I should bring up that often when you call the visitor center there, no one answers.
Right. And we'll talk more about that when we're in person out at Goat Rock, because we'll have the radios there and we can talk about line of sight. And I
That's been a
I'm with you on
problem.
that one. I get it.
Right.
Carolyn,
And, yeah, go
sorry.
ahead.
It's okay.
I noticed on the form there's just one column for shadows. So does that mean like new people, there's just one of us out there at a time?
Okay, so that's a good question. Well, let me tell you, as a shadow, you might be the only one. That's kind of what I signed up for, and I was the only one out there my very first shift, and it was like, okay, I'm on. So that is a great question, and Lisa, you probably have some thoughts on that too.
If someone's willing to be a trainer, then I think as many people, there could be a few shadows that day for sure. So we can add more columns or you can add multiple names into one box, however you want to design it, Lisa.
Okay, and I will tell you that anytime I'm down there for those, it'll be a Saturday and a Sunday, one will be a morning, one will be an afternoon. I am more than happy to have you come out and join me for any of those.
Thank you.
And Bill, you had Bill.
Well, I was going to say, if you're out there with Seal Watch and you're not signed up for that shift, you were saying then there would be a liability problem, right? That's what.
Lisa, I'm going to let you address that because Bill, this is a perfect segue into the next portion. So, Lisa.
So one of the things about this program, and this is for everybody new, those of you who have been in this program know this, but it's if you volunteer for this program, you're technically a volunteer for California State Parks. And Stewards is the local nonprofit which came up because of Seal Watch, because of the passion for protecting the seals. So Stewards helps support the programs, and the state parks guidelines ask that people all sign up ahead of time because, as Lisa said, you're covered under workers' comp. You are welcome to go out there and talk to people about the seals anytime you want. But if you're going to do that and you're not signed up and it's not a shift time, you won't wear like a name tag that says your name in California State Parks Volunteer or any patches or vests that say California State Parks Volunteer. That doesn't stop people from going out and like teaching people about the seals anytime. But if you're on a shift, you need to sign up ahead of time in order to be covered by workers' comp. Did that make sense to people?
Because generally when I go out for the morning shift. And if nobody is replacing me, I stay on till 5.
Right.
So I never signed up for the afternoon shift, but if nobody's coming and we're busy, I just stay out there until my kidneys allow.
Yes. Okay. I know you don't drink enough water out there, Bill. No, it's true. It's okay if if you think you might stay late, maybe put a note next to your name. If no one's gonna show up, I'm gonna stay late. That's all you have to do.
Just
And
want just want to do the right thing, that's all.
I so appreciate that. I really appreciate that. And it is really important to drink water out there, but it is a walk back to the bathroom. So that's why I was kidding Bill about that. Um, I want to, we're almost at time. I really want to answer your question, David. And I also want to just say a couple things about the onboarding process. And I'm happy to stay on for a while and answer people's questions for people who want to hang around. And I also want to acknowledge that we have really experienced Seal Watch volunteers here. And I'm really excited that most of you will be coming to the in-person training and can contribute to the training there, because it's really important to have everyone's experience and voices in this. So in terms of the onboarding, like next steps, if you're here and you're thinking, yeah, I really want to do this, I'm going to send a follow-up email tomorrow. You're welcome to respond to that. Let me know. And then our program assistant, Elise, will send you the process. There's some steps that you have to go through. There's some forms to fill out. They are forms that you'll need to either print or figure out how to sign electronically and send back to us. There's a few forms and, a couple other things we ask you to do. And, but we'll assist you through the process. And then one of the most important things is the duty statement. And I put the actual document in the chat and also a link to it. And the duty statement is just sort of the job description that describes what the role is, what the commitments are. So, maybe just keep that link and take a look at it or download the document so you can see what it's all about. And that does explain some of the more, just some more of the details about the volunteer physician. I also want to mention that we have a Google group. It's an email group. It's just Seal Watch for the Seal Watch people. And we just provide information, like Lisa said, about shifts. It's a way to coordinate when you're going to go out, or, hey, I'm going out this day. And if more people want to join me, you're welcome to. Or if you see something out on your shift, it's really nice to do a shift report to the whole group. Especially during birthing season, that's really exciting. Or if something comes up on the beach and you can share that information with each other, that's what that group is for. And so once you get onboarded as a volunteer, we would add you to that as well. I also, in the follow-up email, I wanted to let you know I'll send you a link to a recording of one of the state parks rangers talking about working with the public. This is a really public-facing role. It's really amazing because a lot of people have never seen harbor seals before. And it's a real opportunity for them to get pretty close. We have a spotting scope out there. They can make observations. But it's also about having a good tone with the public. So I'll send you a link to that as well. Okay, David, do you, I think hang on, David, for one sec. Lisa, did I cover everything I was supposed to there?
Yeah, I was just going to mention there are 2 mandatory trainings. Either the one that you're doing right now is one of them, but the second part is in person out at the beach, which will be and the visitor center. We're doing both trainings on the same day on the 15th. If you cannot make the in-person one and you're committed to being a Seal Watch volunteer, please reach out to myself and we'll make sure that you get the training that you need in person with another volunteer who's seasoned to walk you through it. But it is 2-part trainings, and they're not every year. It's every other year for each of the training, unless there's something significant. And Lisa, you did great.
Yeah, you did. My question is really basic, because this just sounds great. So I just wondered, you gave us a lot of information. So between now and the in-person, is there a way or a document or a site or an email that might help those of us that are totally new to this, what things to read up on or to study up on, kind of help me prioritize what would be of the most benefit to do the job best? That's my question.
That's an excellent question. Thank you. And I will put some of those resources in the follow-up, a combination of videos and also sites that you can go to, websites that you can go to where you can read more information. Lisa, do you want to add something?
And give me a second here so I can pull up Stewards. Okay, here's another great resource if I get to my screen sharing again. Okay, share screen. Here we go. So this is Stewards' website. And this is a public website. So you can go down here to volunteers, go to volunteer resources. And on this page are tons of different documents. Here's that one for Dr. Allen. And there's all kinds of other resources here relevant to the marine mammals. So this is open to you to use, David, anytime you want. And I can't say anything in any particular order. What I would say is the Seal Watch Docent Manual is from 2003, and a group of us are now working on revising it. So if you decide to read it, you're going to go, well, that's not what they're doing anymore. So this is a great tool for all of you to use.
Is there any video or an overview video that just sort of shows, here's kind of what you're going to be doing in these places, in the 3 different kinds of scenarios? Or should we just learn what we can and show up and figure it out?
For me, I took all the trainings that I had, and there were different trainings back then. and then showed up, and I just had my little fact sheet with me, and I kind of winged it until I owned it. And people come out and they ask questions. I have no clue the answers, and then I just have to go. When I can, I go back and research it and then try to give them the information if I can as well. So I don't know. We've got a lot of people who are seasoned here, so you might want to weigh in how you learn best if we have time. But I know, Lisa, it's after 8, and I know we'll stay around. Lisa and I will, but
Well, thanks for doing this.
you're very welcome. Can't
Yeah,
wait to see you out there.
Lisa, I have a quick question. This is Harriet. Could you include the job description in the email that you sent along?
Yes.
And I cannot be at the on-site training. I'm really sorry.
That's okay. Well, you can be in touch with Lisa.
Okay.
Carly.
I just wanted to piggyback on David's question. I would just say that from when I've done it before, the best thing you can do is just be prepared with the questions that you think, people might be interested in about the harbor seals. A lot of what Sarah's presentation went over will cover it. I was a dork and laminated the manual when I did it in 2021. And so I would flip through that and just look at the facts, before I went to a shift. And then any nervousness you have about being on shift, hopefully you'll learn in the in-person training. We'll have someone walk you through how do I open the box and where do I put the ropes if they've fallen down. So
we'll
the
definitely
next
go
training will
through
be
that.
really great. And I'm
Yeah.
excited. I'll be there, and I'll bring my kiddos too. Although they won't be formal volunteers.
Yeah.
Well, I have significant door qualities as well, so I may follow that pathway.
Yeah, and in the binder there is a list of 19 basic facts, and I try to review them before I go out. But I bring my own on my own clipboard. But it's in the binder as well. And if they ask a question, my brain just cannot process it. I just look at my fun facts, and I invite them to take a just take a picture of it as well, so they can walk away with it.
Where's the binder?
We're going to go through that in person.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
in.
Well, it's in
in
my
your
office
little
right now. It's
backpack
not
that
where
you
you
get?
think it is. I've got it here with me at home.
Barbara, go ahead.
But there's a binder that comes in the backpack that has your log thing and has all the information about the seals. I constantly have it open. I've been doing it over 30 years. I can't remember all those numbers. I just have facts right in front of me, and then they can look at the pictures of the seals. They can look at the answers to the questions. Everything's right there in the binder.
And is this a backpack we get when we show up, or once we're registered as a volunteer, we get to keep it?
It's in the storage container. There's a storage container where you're going to go and get binoculars and your vest and things like that. And then there's this little binder that's in the backpack that goes out with you if you choose to. Some people go out without much because they don't want to carry a lot. But there's
I'm
a
probably
backpack
asking a
with
lot
a
of
lot of
questions
stuff
will
in
be
it.
explained when.
Yeah, when you go to the training, you'll see all that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to sit there and memorize things. You don't have to worry about it.
We can always ask the SEALs too for answers.
Yeah.
It's a really good point because watching the seals will give a lot of information. Just getting people to look at the seals, it's just amazing. Lisa was just holding up the binder. And those are good questions. We have like a big Rubbermaid storage locker at the end of the parking lot at Goat Rock Beach. We'll bring you there during the training, but inside of that, there are the binder, there's a backpack in there to hold that in, binoculars, there's a spotting scope, and actually chairs, little foldable chairs if you want to bring chairs out with you as well. As well as some other things.
It's going to be really cool. All right, great. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Anyone else from Seal Watch want to add something? Teresa, go ahead.
Yeah, just kind of a similar question. I've never done shifts at the boat launch, and I'm thinking like the skulls and the other material, those are kept closer to the boat launch.
Correct. They're kept in a storage locker on the porch of the Jenner Visitor Center. And we will go over there after our time out at the beach. We'll go back over to the boat launch for everybody who's interested in being part of the boat launch crew. And we'll go through things there. Anyone else? Well, thank you everybody for being here this evening, taking time, and being interested in the program. And whether you decide to volunteer or not, I hope you'll come out onto Goat Rock Beach and at least come give the harbor seals some love this year.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
See you on the 15th.